Welcome everybody. Hare Krishna. The verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 4, text 22. What is the title, chapter 4? Who can say what is the chapter? Let's see. The atrocities of King Kamsa. Yavat datosmi hantosmi Tyatmanam manyate swadrik Thavat had abhimanyagyo Bhadya bhadakatham iyat Yavat jayatosmi hantosmi Tyatmanam manyate swadrik Tavat had abhimanyagyo Bhadya bhadakatham iyat. Okay, so word for word. So yavat means as long as. Hataha asmi, which means I am now being killed by others. Hanta asmi means I am the killer of others. Iti, thus. Atmanam means one's own self. Manyate. Manyate means to think, to consider. He considers. Aswadrik. Drik is to see, and swa is yourself. So aswadrik, one who's not seeing himself. And then it says in brackets, because of the darkness of bodily conception of life. Tavat, which means for that long. Tat abhimani, which means regarding himself as the killer or killed. Agya, a foolish person, not having gya or knowledge is considered foolish. Bhadya bhadakatam, which means the worldly transaction of being obliged to execute some responsibilities. And last word, iyat, means continuous. So translation. In the bodily conception of life, one remains in darkness, without self-realization, thinking I am being killed or I have killed my enemies. As long as a foolish person thus considers the self to be the killer or the killed, he continues to be responsible for material obligations, and consequently, he suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. Purport. Highest Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By the grace of the Lord, Kamsa felt sincere regret for having unnecessarily persecuted such Vaishnavas as Devaki and Vasudeva. And thus he came to the transcendental stage of knowledge. Quote, because I am situated on the platform of knowledge, Kamsa said, I understand that I am not at all the killer of your sons, for I have no responsibility for their death. As long as I thought I would be killed by your son, I was in ignorance. But I am freed from this ignorance, which was due to a bodily conception of life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 18:17. Yasya nahan krito bhavo bhudir yasya nalipyate havatmi sa imau lokan nahati hanti na nibhadyate. one who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by his actions. According to the axiomatic truth, Kamsa pleaded that he was not responsible for having killed the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. Please try to excuse me for such false external activities, he said, and be pacified with the same knowledge. One more time, verse. Yavad dhatosmi hantasmi tyatmanam manyate swadrik tavat dhad abhimanyagyo bhajya badhakatham iyat. In the bodily conception of life, one remains in darkness without self-realization, thinking, I am being killed, or I have killed my enemies. As long as a foolish person thus considers the self to be the killer or the killed, he continues to be responsible for material obligations. And consequently, he suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna. So this is a very striking verse. And what's found in the verse, what's found in the purport, it can be quite perturbing, because here's Kamsa. He's just killed a bunch of babies, tried to kill the 8th one, goddess Durga, who was dashed to the ground, flew up, and Vishnu Jiva Goswami's one, he said she stepped on his head on the way up. She kind of stepped on his head on the way up. And anybody who reads a little bit ahead, you find that he doesn't stop his atrocities after this momentary, this short time of repentance. He doesn't, okay, now he's a good person, so let's sit down and hear what he has to say. He's transformed. No, so it's a very striking and perturbing verse and purport. And so let's dig into it. There is a statement that it says that when demons become versed in spiritual knowledge, it can feed their cruelty, because there's certain misconceptions that will always be there, due to lack of Krishna consciousness. So Kamsa, he is encouraging Devaki here, please see everything from the vision of the jnani. Just like some examples is given, that a clay pot may be created out of earth, and then the clay pot may be destroyed, but the earth itself is not affected by that circumstance. It just remains stable. So in the same way, your mind should be stable due to the temporary situation of your children's bodies being destroyed. You should understand that the jiva is like the earth. It doesn't become affected by that change. It's the earth itself, the element earth is ever present. Even it dissolves into the body of Vishnu and is still there, and it's in a kind of subtle form. The actual energy is never completely destroyed. But we see that this actual information did not change the consciousness and change the future activities of Kamsa. With spiritual knowledge, we want to see that there's actually changes. For example, we had one devotee, he came And he asked this question. Somebody says, psychedelic mushrooms, they are the way to self-realization. That is the highest thing. And he invited us to argue, to present some kind of refutation. So I'm going to ask you, give us a refutation of that idea. Who can give us something? Andrea? Will Prabhu? Let's see some faces
Hare
here.
Krishna, Nityananda, Chandra Prabhu. I mean, so you're asking us to refute the statement that taking psychedelic mushrooms is the highest spiritual realization?
Yeah,
Yes.
and we need someone who has experience and some background in that. No, I'm joking.
I have an experience, so I can. But do you have some refutation?
I mean, I have a refute. Yeah.
Yes, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
That the highest spiritual realization is one that you achieve without any kind of material, means. So you don't want to be using something such as psychedelics, which becomes a crutch.
What if the psychedelics are spiritual, like the sound vibration? Isn't that material? I hear it with my material ears.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not something that is affecting your senses in a way that might deteriorate you later on, and you're not becoming addicted to it. So that's the hurdle with that. It could be, and I've spoken to devotees who, before they became devotees, did psychedelics, and they said that they were able to make a comparison between their experience with the psychedelics and then with just experiencing the holy name, being sober. And they felt that it was a much greater high because they could feel that it was truly spiritual. There wasn't any kind of taint of the material to it.
So by comparison, there was so some of the different arguments that we presented was like, like the old argument is you go high, but then you come back down. And so then he said, okay, well, unless you're a very advanced devotee, you're probably also experiencing the joys of Krishna consciousness, and then you fall back into material consciousness. And the conclusion he gave was that there is a change of attraction to matter that does not come by the process of engaging in any type of psychedelic mushrooms. For example, there's a famous verse in the Bhagavatam, the one about eating. What are 3 things that happen to you when you put food in your mouth? Will Prabhu? Is on mute. I got a tishti pushti should paya. Will, what happens when you put food in your mouth? What happens to you? What's that, Will?
The salivary glands start to build up.
What else?
The senses, you can actually smell it and
taste it.
Taste it, yeah.
Okay. What happens when you eat it?
The hunger goes away and you feel satisfaction.
Hunger goes away. Something goes away and satisfaction. So the bhakti parineshu anabhava varaktir anyat chachaisha chika eka kala perpadyamanasya yatatatashnus tushti pushti shutpaya anugasham. This is 11th canto. These 3 things happen automatically when you engage in okay, we'll explain that one, Andrea. There's 3 things that happen with each successive bite. Something happens. You get taste, you get some nourishment, some energy. It's it's really interesting. Like in Ayurveda, you have this concept of prana. Like if you eat something that has a lot of nice energy in it, nice fresh crisp apple, and automatically you felt some energy. You haven't even digested it yet, but you're getting some subtle energy there, right? And then something goes away, your hunger goes away. And so when you engage in bhakti, 3 things happen automatically. You get the pleasure of bhakti, the pleasure of connecting with Krishna with love. Because as we've probably heard this term, the means and the ends are the same. So you have the pleasure of bhakti comes at the very beginning. Just all you have to do is try to serve Krishna with love, and there's some pleasure there. And then parareshu anubhav, there is some awareness. Oh, your phone charger. There you go. Give it phone charger. All right, bye-bye. There's some awareness that's expanding, that's compared to nourishment. It's sustaining the individual. This awareness of Krishna's all-pervasive nature, his kindness, is one's benefactor. And the last element, this is the one that we brought up for this psychedelic mushrooms, is virakti, a type of indifference, lack of attraction to the material energy. So one in bhakti, unless someone's like Shukadev Goswami or Srila Prabhupada or some exalted devotee, they may have some experiences where they're going up and they might not be staying up, because we're works in progress. But we can see something that virakti, that we're becoming more and more less attracted by the allurements of matter. That there's things that we've been very attached to before that feel like, oh, I don't need that anymore. There's so many devotees, as soon as they started going to the temple, eating a little prasadam, 2 packs of cigarettes a day, done. So many different intoxications, so many different attachments. Maybe they were sleeping around, maybe they're doing intoxication, maybe they're doing all kinds of different things that ultimately very destructive. But bhakti gave them some higher taste, and immediately there was that virakti, that detachment. So that's one of the arguments I was given, that someone who engages in like psychedelic mushrooms is not finding that they're becoming less attached to matter. It's not changing that circumstance. So similarly, Kamsa, he's expressing some jnana, some knowledge about the distinction between matter and spirit, but it did not make him more attracted to Krishna or less attached to matter. So it's Prabhupada does say here, what does he say? He felt sincere regret for having unnecessarily persecuted Vaishnavas such as Devaki, and came to the transcendental stage of knowledge. So he had a glimpse of the distinction between the body and the soul. But this is not the knowledge of this transcendental stage of knowledge. It's not the knowledge of bhakti. This is just preliminary understanding of the distinction of the body and the soul. And such knowledge, as we hear in the purports previously, that it says that Devaki was a little hesitant to give any type of good instruction, because good instructions to a foolish person can make them more vicious. For example, if you are a devotee with books on the street and you find somebody who is with a megaphone, screaming, "Y'all going to hell," and then you go and tell them, God is actually a blue boy, and he likes to play tag, and he kills witches by drinking their breast milk, and 5,000 years ago he was there and he was like 15 feet tall or whatever. Then you're just actually giving him all kinds of information that he's just gonna see, these guys are crazy. You're just encouraging the animosity towards the understanding of Krishna. So Kamsa, his brief understanding of the soul being different from the body did not actually change his relationship of how he dealt with Krishna. You find there are many parts in the Bhagavatam where the demons start dropping knowledge. You got Hiranyakashipu talking about he's trying to appease his nephews. It's on the death of Hiranyaksha, and he's telling Hiranyaksha, his nephews, that about reincarnation and how we're not the body. And you're at that point, you're like, oh my God, this is actually one of the most, that section is one of the most detailed sections about reincarnation in the Bhagavatam. Is the bad guy speaking. Or you have the so-called bad guy, Vitrasura. He is also speaking great knowledge, but he's actually a devotee in the taking the role of a not a, maybe a Daitya or Asura, I'm not sure which one, but it basically role of a demon. But you have these parts in the Bhagavatam where it's quite surprising. Here, even Bhagavatam is such a cool book that even when the bad guys start speaking, you start taking out your notebook. Okay, what are they saying here? This is really interesting. But we should also examine that it did not change his understanding, did not actually change his approach to how he would deal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you look further on, some of the demons, they kind of criticize Kamsa, because when the demigods were fighting with Kamsa, many of them became very fearful. They dropped their weapons. They're basically very scared in his presence. And Kamsa did not kill them. That's the warrior's code. And they criticize Kamsa for that. They say, because you're acting dharmically as a warrior, then you're actually giving power to the demigods. You got to act more adharmically. We got to kill brahmanas, and the brahmanas do these yagyas that bring auspiciousness to this world with the help of ghee, and ghee comes from milk, and milk comes from cows. You got to kill some cows. You got to kill devotees. This is all later in this chapter, you see. And Kamsa is like, yeah, these are all very good ideas. Now, I would say that Kamsa's kind of arguing for his sake is less duplicitous. He may truly see that this is the vision of a jnani, that we are not this body, and there's and then one should not lament. But when devotees use different philosophical ideas to avoid behaving correctly, then it is actually more duplicitous than Kamsa. And so when you have a philosophy with all kinds of subtleties, it is easy to use it in various ways. For example, this is just a small example. There was this exchange where one devotee, a senior mother, was upset with this devotee. I don't know what was the circumstance. She was scolding him, and his response was, "Oh, I am so stupid. I messed things." But his response was actually just a deflection. He was constantly just deflecting, but very publicly advertising his humility. And it was where humility is a very glorious thing. This was like it looked very ugly. It was just like, it was basically on the plea of humility, basically telling the lady, shut up. Just saying, I'm this, oh, I'm stupid, I'm that, I'm this, basically, but it's like covering the ears. I'm not listening. And so, we have principles of humility. Other one is principles of tolerance. Generally, we don't want to be the person telling others to tolerate us. That's not how it works. So sometimes these principles, which are very glorious, when they're misused, like we see Kamsa, when it's perturbing. He is, but I think he truly this is his true understanding that, okay, this is how the Gyanis see this world, and and due to some temporary mercy, he is feeling forgiveness, and he's also seeing the soul being different from the body. But the devotees know better. Okay, this is, they know better than Kamsa. Okay, yeah, you can't use that as an excuse not to take responsibility in how you deal with others, and use that as some kind of, every time you make a mistake, every time you hurt somebody. But actually, I think I'm not the body, so I'm not, I don't have any karma. I didn't do anything wrong, and you should think that way too. You should also think you're not the body. You're not thinking that you're not the body, then that's your problem. So let's see. So yeah, there are many different examples of how we can take different, very subtle principles. Like, for example, in our tradition, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to do so much work to help clarify what was the enter Maharani Devi Dasi. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to do so much work to help clarify what is the authentic representation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. He identified, was it 11, 12? What was the number? How many opera sampradayas? Who knows the number? Opera sampradaya. Sampradaya means like a bona fide lineage, a tradition. And opera means the going against the authentic understanding. 17. Oh my God. So there are a few of them we know as the owls, the bows, the Karti Bedas, the Saki Bekis, the Gauranga Nagaris, the Sahajas. These are all actually different kinds of forms of Sahajas, but there's a group called Sahaja. And some of them there are the Chudidaras. Guy would dress himself in as Krishna, wear a peacock feather in his hair, and invite all kinds of ladies to become his gopis. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur would, through his literature, through his teaching, would explain how this is not how you follow Krishna consciousness. Or you had the Saki Bekis, they would dress themselves as the gopis, and they would have, they basically have many, many different ways that things would become twisted over time. As Krishna says, what is the verse? Is it 4:11? Mahata yoga nashta kalena mahata yoga nashta parantapa. Nashta means destruction, and kalena, by the influence of time, it has this deprecating, this destructive effect. By the influence of time, things become destroyed. So great devotees, such as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, try to make the path clear. For example, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I don't know if you know, he wrote a nice song book. Entropy, yeah, there you go. He wrote a song book under a pen name. The song book is called Bal Sangit. And he wrote it in the particular style of the Bals. Bals are a particular type of group, and he wrote the songs in that type of genre. But the lyrics were mainly to help establish what is the authentic practice. Bal means madman. So what is the authentic practice of actually becoming mad in Krishna Prema? And so in the songbook, he said, instead of leaving your legally married wife to become a Babaji and then have all kinds of illicit affairs. Just stay home, work a job, and practice Krishna consciousness. You don't have to take this dress of Babaji and then do it in a very exploitative and in an unauthentic way. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he presented all these things, and it is due to the very subtle nuances in Chaitanya Vaishnavism that these things can become, that these kind of disturbances or breakoffs can happen. When you have things that are maybe less nuanced, I don't think in the Sri Vaishnavism, nobody was dressing themselves as Vishnu and trying to get a Lakshmi, like saying, I'm Vishnu and you be my Lakshmi, or you be my, there's only actually one Lakshmi with Vishnu. There's not, like, the pastimes are not like Krishna and the many gopis. So because it's very clear, it's less achincha beta beta tattva, less mixed and nuanced, then sometimes less problems. It takes more clarification and more discernment to make sure that these things are practiced properly. Sometimes, like, for example, a devotee may burn the khichdi, and they say, oh, perhaps Krishna wanted it that way. No. As Prabhupada said, we should not whimsically approach these different things. So I'll stop here, see if there's some reflections, comments, questions. Andrea has raised her hand. Please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted a clarification again about the three terms that were put in the chat. So what exactly does tushti mean? Taste. Okay, and pushti?
Nourishment. There's even a Vaishnav lineage called the Pushti Marg.
Oh, okay. And Vairagya?
The last one is actually Viraktir. Viraktir. Viraktir is a little bit different than Vairagya, because Vairagya is kind of in a sense, like a more negative, like a disgust, like a real, like, avoidance, and Viraktir is more sense of just like indifference.
Viraktir is more a sense of,
just like a sense of detachment, just like completely indifferent.
Great. And then my second part is I always love hearing your stories because you always have such great interactions with beginning devotees or introducing people to Krishna consciousness. I was wondering if you could share another anecdote of, in your process of reaching out to people, the changes you've seen. I just love hearing those stories from you.
What story did I give last? I don't know.
Even if it's a repeat, it'll be great to hear it because we have new people that show up all the time.
Let's see. I have a book distribution story. I probably told you. There's I think I told you this one already. That I was standing on the corner of 42nd Street at Times Square, and I was towards, like, kind of heading towards Grand Central, maybe heading towards Grand Central Station. And this lady's walking up, and stopping somebody on book distribution in New York City is like trying to stop a train. In Texas, it's the opposite. Texas is actually, it's so easy to shoot books in Texas. The only problem is that there's no people anywhere. They're all inside the malls. You can go to downtown Dallas and it's just a ghost town. There's like hardly a soul walking around. But if you see somebody across the street, you say, excuse me, and they walk right over to you. Does not happen here in Dallas, in New York City. In fact, I was here in New York a few years ago, and every time we would come, we would try to do a little bit of book distribution. And I was on the street, and I had been living in Texas for too long. So I was going to people and going, excuse me, sir. And everybody's just zooming past me, I don't know if they said any swear words or I don't know. This is, I said, excuse me, sir, 300 times, and not one person took a book. And then I went to Vasudev. Everybody knows Vasudev, our Pujari, Radha Murlidhar. So he was in the saffron. He was a brahmachari. I know this was more years than 5 years ago. This was quite some years ago. And I said, okay, how do I stop a New Yorker? I'm totally out of touch. Like I've been acclimated to the Texas environment. And if you go to New York to Texas as a book distributor, you have to like tone down the energy. And then if you go from Texas to New York, you gotta become acclimated. He said, okay, you have to, just like, you know, if you see the fighter jet movies where they have, or like in Star Wars where they're trying to shoot the target, and it's like the thing is like, then it's like locks up. You gotta like go up to the person and like at the right moment, just go and shake their hand. Hey, how's it going? And I said, no one will shake your hand and walk away. They'll say, hey, what's up? How you doing? No, it's a little bit of a submissive exchange. Like you put your hand out, like they can, but it's also, you just had a personal exchange there. They're not going to just, you know, shake your hand and walk away. They'll just say, hey, how you doing? You know. And after that, books started going out. So I was on the street and I was thinking, what do I say to this lady? This lady's walking up. And there's a bus going by and it says Atlantic City. And so I turned to the lady and I said, Miss, are you from Atlanta? Which is, of course, not the same. And she stopped and she's, oh my God, what's going on? And I said, we're the monks. We're distributing books about how you're not the body, how you're the soul within the body, and the soul will not be satisfied unless it connects to the supreme soul. This is New York City. You can just tell people as it is. It's just like, you know, they're just, you know, I'm into it, I'm not into it, bye. It's like very quick and easy. Just they want to know straight up, what is it? And she put her hands on her head when I said that, and she said, "Oh my God, you don't even know. You don't even know. Oh my God, you don't even know." And I said, "What's happening?" She said, I work as a model and I've been feeling very insecure about my body. And so right now I was walking down the street praying to God, saying, "Oh God, I feel so insecure about my body. I just want to go home. I want to go back to Atlanta. Oh God, I want to go back to Atlanta. I feel so insecure about my body." And I said, "Miss, are you from Atlanta? Here's a book. You're not your body." So she was like, "I'll take a whole bunch." And she took whatever. Or one time I was in the subway. I was just, you know, I had a stack of books in my hands, saffron robes. And somebody came up to me and said, "How much for all of them?" $67. And they just handed it to me. I was like, cool things happen in New York City. Or another one in New York City was, we're at the Warp Tour. I think it's Rutgers. There's some island. What's the island that has like a concert venue? It's between Manhattan and Queens.
Randall's Island.
Randall's Island. Yes. Yeah. So we were there, and we're shipping books in the parking lot. Welcome to the show. We're the monks. Oh, you guys playing? We're the monks. When you guys are on stage, we say it like we're in the band or something. We run over to each car and distribute books, and we were done for the day. Everybody gets in the concert and it's over. We weren't the ones that had like the free pass. There's sometimes devotees would have passes. Actually, the person who ran the Warp Tour, he has Gauri deities in his tour bus, and due to his help, literally hundreds of thousands of these books have been distributed at the Warp Tour. It's one of the biggest venues ever, and the owner of the Warp Tour gave tickets. What is it? Atmanivedana Prabhu. He gave them free passes for years, for more than a decade. Free passes, like 5 or 6 devotees were allowed inside the concert. These massive concerts with like 30, 40 bands playing on 17 different stages, and their devotees would distribute books there all the time. And I remember there was one college we had some program, and there was like 30, 40 kids there, and all of them had received books from the Warped Tour. They all had, 20 of them, or 20, almost all of them had all received books from the Warped Tour. So we were done, and we're packing up our stuff. We're arranging the Lakshmi, the money, putting it away. And then from far away, I see this car pull up, and these people, it's quite far. And this are like latecomers to the concert. And this inspiration just came and said, "Go get him, run!" Run over there. And I say, "Hey, welcome to the show, we're the monks." And, books on meditation, yoga. And we hand a book in the car, and then out comes like a 20. Hand another book in the car, out comes a 20. And another book in the car, out comes a 10. And another book in the car, out comes a 10. And another book out of the car, out comes a 10. It would just happen like that. Put another book, money comes out. Another book, money comes. Just kept on happening like that. It was like $100 something or something. I don't know. It was a fun exchange. That's what I've always heard, is that it is Krishna's soft spot. We hear that in the 18th chapter. What is Krishna's soft spot? Adipurusha Prabhu? He's on mute.
No one is more dear to me than one who preaches this message, right? Can you hear that?
Yes. So
No one
somebody
is more dear to me than one who preaches this message.
Yes. So somebody might like gulab jamins. Somebody
Oh,
might
I
like
see.
cupcakes.
Yeah. No one is more dear to me than one who preaches this message.
Yes. So somebody how do you butter Krishna up? How do you butter him up? You're the butter boy. How do you butter up the butter thief? And Krishna says, this is how you butter me up. This is, if you help people get this knowledge of me, that's my soft spot. I just become Prabhupada in a Nectar Devotion lecture. He says that person who distributes this knowledge, those who preach, Krishna gives very special protection. This is one of the very quick ways to grow in one's spiritual life. All right, I think we're right at the time. Any other last comments, questions?
No time left. Talk more? Okay, they said the Ditas are going to wait. This is an interesting story about Kamsa. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Yeah.
He does something really horrendous, and then he gets chastised by Yogamaya, and he all of a sudden becomes contrite, and then he starts getting philosophical and everything. But this contrition is like just the weirdest. He's regrets that he's done something wrong, or he's trying to avoid the reaction, or he's trying to deflect the blame. But real contrition, we know, means, Lord, I'm sorry for having offended you, who are worthy of all my love. It's contrition without being sorry to someone because somehow or other we've made them unhappy. It's impersonal, so it's not perfect. But if we do something, which we're trying to follow in the principles that we see in Scripture, if we do something inappropriate and we become regretful and we say, Lord, please forgive me. Krishna, we were listening to Kadamba Kanamars last night, and he was saying that Krishna knows everything. He's the cause of all causes, but he's also sentient, which means he has a heart, which means he cares about us, which means he's compassionate, which means he loves us and he's wishing us well. And so he's certainly going to forgive us if we ask for forgiveness from him. Right? Just a comment about
Thank you.
Forgiveness, contrition.
So the humility, the seeing
Regret.
one's misdeeds, regret, it has to be married with the responsibility, not avoidance of, oh, but actually I'm not, I don't do anything. So and you better also be transcendental. Thank you. Thank you.
And say, whoops, I did it again, but then apologize to Krishna.
Yeah, that story of the devotee saying, I am this, I am that, but it wasn't married with responsibility. It was more of a deflecting, like, I don't want to hear this. And it was, I'm just going to speak verbally how I'm going to denigrate myself verbally, just as a show of humility, but I'm not going to accept any responsibility. So thank you all for being here. Jai Shri Radha Muralidhar and Shri Gaura Chandra Ki. Hare Krishna.
Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar Ki Jai. Shri Gaura Chandra Ki Jai and Nityananda Chandra Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Good seeing everybody. Krishna Dayadas, you have the best smile. Thank you for keeping the camera on. Hare Krishna. Rameshwar Naik, beautiful. Good to see you. Andrea, Adipusha Prabhu, Naomi Yogeshwari, Sharmila, Suzanne, Angelica, Akiko Chan, Amish, AJ, Jason, Maharani Didi. Okay, have a wonderful day. Hare